Earlier this morning, before the market opened, as early as 7 a.m., we got some big BMNR news. Now, as you know, this is something that I've been accumulating in my portfolio, so obviously I want to cover it. It's about 5% of my portfolio right now, and I'm willing to go even higher than that. And earlier this morning, this thing was down over 7% in pre-market trading on the back of this news. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining this news along with some rumors around the potential acquisition that could completely change the narrative for BMNR. Let's jump right in. Okay, first and foremost, let's start off by covering the news. This morning, we've got two press releases from the investor relations of BMNR, and I'm going to cover both of them and talk a little bit in detail about why they're relevant. And then we're going to talk about this acquisition rumor because I think it could be really interesting in the context of where BMNR is right now. By the way, the stock is recovering right now. It's only down about 4.5%. Of course, the market hasn't opened yet. It's about 850 as of this recording. So we'll see what happens when the market opens. As you know, pre-market and overnight trading generally is low volume, especially when you compare it to normal trading hours, right? So really take this directionally with a grain of salt, but I mean, this can be up or down. And in the case of BMNR, I think it can even end the day green in a big way as the market continues to digest this news. So what is the news? Well, earlier this morning, BMNR announced the pricing of 365 million registered direct offering at $70 per share. So basically what they're doing is they're selling 5.2 million shares at $70 per share. And you can think to yourself, wait a minute, the stock is only $58. How are they selling this at $70 per share? Well, there's buyers, of course, from the institutional side that want to buy this at $70 per share. They're also selling approximately 10.4 million warrants with a strike price of $87.50. And because the shares are being sold at $70, it's 14% premium to the closing price on September 19th, which was Friday. So let's now jump into that press release and get more details. So we can see 5.22 million shares at $70 per share and approximately 10.4 million warrants with a strike price of $87.50, 14% premium to closing price on Friday, remains supported by a premier group of institutional investors, including Cathie Wood's ARK Invest, Founders Fund, Pantera, Kraken, a whole bunch of others. And of course, BMNR's goal, if you're new to this channel, is acquiring 5% of Ethereum supply. Essentially, here they outline some of the terms of the deal, especially with the warrants. The warrants are exercisable upon issuance and will expire on March 22nd, 2027. And the warrants can be exercised ahead of expiration in whole or in part in exchange for a cash payment of the exercise price. And by doing this, BMNR is expecting gross proceeds of $365 million. The potential future aggregate proceeds of the warrants represent approximately $913 million from cash exercises. If the warrants were to be exercised, this would result in total proceeds of $1.28 billion, combining the common offering and the cash exercise of the warrants. Now, here's a quote by Tom Lee. He says, "Bitmine has raised $365 million by selling our stock at a 14% premium to Friday's close. By selling shares at $70 per share compared to our $61 closing price, this is materially accretive to existing shareholders." Why? Well, because the primary use of these funds is going to be to add to the Ethereum holdings that BMNR has in pursuance of their 5% total allocation goal. That's their mission. They're going to get to 5%. And so they're going to keep accumulating Ethereum by issuing more shares. That's the whole treasury strategy. And the quote here continues, "In our view, this 14% premium reflects not only strong institutional investor interest in BitMine's story, but also confidence in our execution as a company. Institutional investors have told us BitMine remains the only large cap US stock to give investors direct exposure to Ethereum." That is so incredibly bullish from institutional investors. And they highlight here why that's the case. Tom Lee's message resonates with many investors who see the compelling super cycle for Ethereum as Wall Street moves to embrace and build upon this blockchain. The company expects the offering to close on or about September 23rd. I mean, you could argue that raising funds is not bullish, but then you'd be new to treasury strategies because this is their entire thing. When basically the ratio of what the market cap is much higher than the net asset value, the underlying value of the assets they hold on their balance sheet, they're going to issue more shares. And the fact that they're issuing shares at a premium to what the stock is trading at is really bullish. And I think that last sentence ties it all together. Tom Lee's message is resonating with institutional investors. It is the reason that they're buying this at a premium. It is the reason that they see BitMine as the only large cap US stock for direct exposure to Ethereum. And much of that is as a result of Tom Lee, because I mentioned in previous videos that yes, a competitive advantage is having Tom Lee on the team because he's able to secure deals like this with institutional investors, because he's able to essentially leverage his contacts and his network in Wall Street to set BMNR ahead of other treasury companies. And there's a couple of treasury companies. I'm going to talk about them in just a second. But the second press release that dropped alongside the issuing more shares is, of course, them buying more Ethereum. Here you can see the second press release. These two dropped at the same time at 7 a.m. Bitmine Immersion announces Ethereum holdings exceed 2% of Ethereum network, with ETH tokens exceeding 2.4 million tokens and total crypto and cash holdings of $11.4 billion. Bitmine now owns greater than 2% of the Ethereum token supply as it moves towards the alchemy of 5%. Their crypto plus cash plus their moonshots. So, of course, one of their moonshots is the equity stake that they have in 8Co ORBS, and that one has done tremendously for them. It's gone up quite a bit since they purchased it. Now total $11.4 billion, including 2.416 million ETH tokens and cash of 345 millions and other crypto holdings, because they also hold some Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They are now the 24th most traded stock in the US, trading $3.5 billion per day. They mentioned that as of September 21st at 4 p.m., so yesterday basically, their crypto holdings comprised of 2.416 ETH at $4,497 per Ethereum. In addition to that, they also have 192 Bitcoin, $175 million stake in Eco holdings, and cash of 345 million. This Ethereum average is really interesting because if you look at the Ethereum price, it's 4,197. So with Ethereum dropping quite a bit today, it obviously is lower than what Bitmine has it right now. Here, Tom Lee also says in a quote that their Ethereum holdings now exceed 2% of supply. We approached holdings of 1% of ETH in early August when the equity was $38 per share. And now as we exceed 2%, the share price is $61 per share. As we mentioned in our August chairman's message, the convergence of both Wall Street moving into blockchain and AI and agentic AI creating a token economy is creating a super cycle for Ethereum. And the power law benefits large holders of ETH. Hence, we pursue the 5% allocation of Ethereum, the alchemy of 5% as they're calling it. We continue to believe that Ethereum is one of the biggest macro trades over the next 10 to 15 years. Wall Street and AI moving into the blockchain should lead to a greater transformation of today's financial system. And the majority of this is taking place on Ethereum. Bitmine is now one of the largest traded stocks in the US. They're doing about $3.5 billion of volume. The Ethereum holdings over time, here is the actual list. And you can see that September 21st is here with 2.4 million Ethereum tokens. And if you plot that out, you can see the Ethereum holdings over time. As of the beginning of August, these guys were not even at a million. They crossed the million threshold around the second week of August here, and they crossed 2 million here in the beginning of September, and they're already about 2.5 million Ethereum over the course of these last couple of months. And so that's incredibly bullish, because if you look at where exactly are they going, their target, of course, is 6 million Ethereum. They are now a third of the way there, roughly, with 2.4 million Ethereum. Now, I also saw this post here by Chris Patel saying the latest financing deal sets the stage for the stock to be above 87.50. How much above? Well, they paid a 10% premium to the BMNR price and got a call option that is currently trading roughly $16 to $17 with nearly similar expiration dates and strikes, which is a pretty good deal for both parties. Basically saying if the stock is not above $87.50 by March 22nd, 2027, the warrants expire worthless. And if the stock is not above $60 by that same date, they basically overpaid for the shares. Seeing the quality of investors that did this deal, my guess would be that they're banking on a substantially higher price of BMNR, which is obviously incredibly bullish. I'm in fact going to be buying more BMNR today. And part of it is this news, but this news is, of course, part of their strategy with regards to acquiring more Ethereum, with regards to their treasury. And I've made 2 other BMNR videos, so I encourage you to take a look at those at the end of this one. But essentially in those videos, I outlined the thesis for BMNR and why I'm going into it. This started as a 2% position for me. It's now currently closer to a 4.5% to 5% position for me. I wouldn't be surprised if BMNR goes up to 7 or 8%, making it in my top 5 holdings, because they continue to acquire more Ethereum. The Ethereum price is currently lower. So if Ethereum goes up, or when Ethereum goes up, as Tom Lee predicts, $10,000 to $15,000 per Ethereum at the end of this year, if the underlying is going up by 3x, then BMNR is going to go up by more than that. As you saw from Tom Lee's message, back in August, they crossed the million Ethereum and the stock was $38. And today they crossed 2.5 million Ethereum and the stock is $61. So obviously, BMNR stock is going to continue to increase. And one thing you should be looking out for is this metric of the MNAV, because when you have an MNAV that is quite high, then you can expect the company to issue more shares to acquire more Ethereum at a premium. So when you're looking at BMNR, these are the two metrics that I really want you to keep in mind to understand where we are in the story, because it's going to be predictive of what they do going forward. So the first one is the net asset value per share. Here you can see it's $38.17. And basically what this is the underlying value of their holdings. So you take all of their Ethereum that they hold, multiply it by the price of Ethereum and all of their other assets like USD, and you divide it by the shares outstanding. Meaning that at the current price of Ethereum, because it's down right now, the actual value per share of just raw assets is $38. But BMNR is trading for, a $20 premium to that, because it's currently at $58 as of this recording. And so when you're looking at this, you can say that, well, you have $38 just as the value of Ethereum, if nothing else. And that brings us to the MNAV. And the MNAV is basically the market to the net asset value. So the calculation is very simply the stock price where it's trading at right now. So if we go ahead and we take 58.89 and then we divide that by 38.17, this is the number you should get. You should get 1.52 or 1.53x, depending on what the stock is trading at. Essentially, this is what is the market premium to the assets that they're holding right now. If the market premium is really high, that means that the stock is trading really high relative to their holdings. And generally, what's going to happen is the company is going to issue more shares, just like they did this weekend. And they're going to be buying more Bitcoin so that they can increase this NAV per share and lower this ratio, essentially. Now, because this video is going way, way too long, I'm going to be talking about a potential acquisition. So here I saw this post and I was tagged in it actually. And this was September 19th. And I retweeted this post saying, could BitMine be acquiring ETHZilla? So I'm just going to read this post here by Compound Interest Enjoyer. So it basically starts out by saying this golden parachute clause might signal a potential merger activity. And here there's speculation that it could be BitMine. This filing, in addition to them not posting for 5 days, supports the idea of a big change in the coming weeks. Ahead of major business pivots, it's not uncommon for management to go dark. Details will be provided during the shareholder meeting on October the 7th. ETHZilla is trading at a considerable discount to NAV, making them an easy acquisition target. And we just talked about what NAV is. So what this means is their share price and market cap is below their actual asset value. They have more intangible assets than they're trading at. I've coined ETHZilla as the most productive ETH DAT and their property yield generation strategy led by Electric Capital. Now, imagine they're acquired by BitMine and apply that strategy to BitMine's enormous pile of ETH. We're talking about billions of dollars of cash flow per year through staking, and the flywheel goes parabolic. If an acquisition is what's happening, the question becomes what price is BitMine or somebody else willing to pay for that business? Will they throw ETHZilla a huge bone and buy them out at NAV, or leverage their discount to NAV they're currently trading at and pay someone like 90 cents on the dollar? An acquisition price of 0.9 MNAV would still be a good deal for ETHZilla given they're trading under 0.8x. So basically saying they can get them at a discount here. Unless BitMine or somebody else is ultra generous and buys them out at a premium to NAV, this could make somebody very unhappy for shareholders. If this idea does come to fruition, they can be picking up a nice pile of Ethereum on the cheap. Obviously, it's all speculative, but this could end up being highly accretive for BitMine or somebody else's shareholders. So basically saying that this company is trading really cheap, and there's signals that it could be acquired. Now, what's interesting here is we got some news earlier this morning. ETHZilla is announcing this $350 million add-on investment to provide business updates. They partnered with an existing investor to raise an additional $350 million on the issue of new convertible debentures. So they're basically raising more cash. They now have 102,000 Ethereum holdings and repurchasing 6 million shares this month. Their holdings are valued at $460 million, and they also hold $228 million in cash. So, of course, this is a play here around what is the net asset value, what is the premium on top of that net asset value relative to where the market cap is for this company. Now, it's interesting, right? Because this was up 25% in overnight trading. So I think here one of the big pieces is that ETHZilla has a shareholder meeting that's taking place on October the 7th, where more details are going to be disclosed. And it could run on the speculation. It could run on the fact that they're raising more money. It could run on a whole bunch of different things. But one of the interesting scenarios for this is whether BitMine does acquire a smaller player in the space. And of course, this was up quite a significant bit and sort of gave up a lot of those gains. It's up about 7% right now in pre-market trading. And at this point, you might be asking, why is this relevant? Because it's all speculation. Well, if BitMine does in fact acquire ETHZilla, they are acquiring one of the big competitors in the space. Bitmine is, of course, the number one Ethereum treasury. Here you have the top five, and you can see a number five with 102,000 Ethereum is ETHZilla. So Bitmine acquiring them, especially if they acquire them at NAV or something that is a premium to where they're trading, they can basically acquire a whole bunch of Ethereum. They can acquire that team, acquire them, and they take out a competitor in doing so. So there's obviously something to that thesis. This is the important part. There's a special shareholder meeting scheduled for October 7th with details pending, commonly used for approving mergers, acquisitions, or major transactions. So there's a lot of speculation that there could be a potential acquisition. Bitmine makes sense because they're the largest in the space and they now have more money that they've just raised. And so I think October 7th is going to be a really key date for all investors of Bitmine to keep in mind. Because if ETHZilla does announce an acquisition, then it's most likely going to be on that date at that special shareholders meeting. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. That could be one of the potential avenues. Either way, I think with them raising money, that's obviously going to be bullish for them. Given where they're trading, it makes sense for management to be raising money. Anyways, since this has gone way too long, I just wanted to cover that news. BMNR raising money and buying more Ethereum is part of their strategy. It's one of the reasons why I'm invested in them. But the fact that they can do it at a premium and the fact that institutional investors are seeing Bitmine as the number one Ethereum play, the only Ethereum play essentially, even though they're one of many treasuries, I think is testament to that strategic competitive advantage of having somebody like Tom Lee on the team. And whether or not they're going to acquire ETHZilla, I don't know. It's just rumors right now, but we're going to see what happens on October 7th. I found it very coincidental that ETHZilla is also raising money and the PR just dropped on the exact same day as the Bitmine PR. But of course, all of that is speculation. We don't know anything for certain. Am I buying any ETHZilla? I might buy some call options, honestly, just short dated call options to see what happens on October 7th. Of course, with a super, super, super minor position, maybe like 0.5% or something like this of the portfolio. Am I buying more Bitmine? Absolutely. I'm actually going to be buying more right after I get off this video as the market opens. I'm probably going to be waiting to see what happens when the market does open, if it does dump, or what happens in the first couple of minutes of trading. As of right now, I've been recording for about 20 minutes, and you can see that this is still about 4% down in pre-market, although it's recovering quite nicely. So we'll see what happens when the market actually opens. But again, this is part of their strategy. It's something that they're executing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see even more raises of this nature. So there's really no major news there other than the fact that they got it at a premium. And it's really telling that institutional investors believe this is going to go much higher and are willing to pay a premium for this. So of course, do your own homework, do your own due diligence, but hope you enjoyed this video and I'll keep you more updated on what happens with future BMNR news. So definitely follow the channel for more. Like I said, I'm acquiring more as early as today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.